Okay, here's the second video. So this is how to find the integral of an absolute value function. So it's the opposite of finding the derivative. It's a little bit more difficult, just very tedious. So, for example, let's say a question said to find the distance that a particle travels from t equals 0 to t equals 3, given that the velocity is 3t minus 5. So we know that we can just do this on a calculator. We put the absolute value around it to keep all the distance positive. And if you do this on a calculator, you will get 6.827. However, what if this was part of a non-calculator section and there was no way for you to get back to find the original function because you can't solve for c? So you're going to have to know how to solve an absolute value integral. Okay, so what you have to do is you take what's inside the absolute value signs and you set it equal to 0. And then you solve for t. Okay, so we're going to get that. And what we're going to do is we're going to create two separate integrals, one that goes from 0 to 5/3, and then one that goes from 5/3 to 3. Okay, because that's what our limits were, from 0 to 3. And then we have to solve each of these. So how do we do that? Well, let's start with the first integral. You choose a number between 0 and 5/3. For example, 1. Put 1 into this function right here. And if you do, you'll get 3 minus 5, which is a negative number, which means that we have to negate everything that's in there. So we're going to have the integral, and then we're going to do the negatives of every term. Okay, and that we do know how to solve. And then for the next one, you take a value between 5/3 and 3, such as 2, plug it into here. You'll get 6 minus 5, which is 1, which is positive, which means keep all the same signs. Okay, and then we're going to solve each one of these, and then we're going to add them together, and we'll have an answer. The fractions are just going to get annoying. That's what's going to be the problem. Okay, so here is the first one. So the first one is just going from 0 to 5/3, and that was the negative one. So negative 3t plus 5 dt. Okay, we're going to find the antiderivative, which will be easy. Okay, and it says it goes from 0 to 5/3. So we're going to put the 5/3 in there. And luckily, when we do minus, what happens when we put in 0, well, it's just going to be 0, so we don't even have to worry about that. Alright, so we're going to get negative 75 over 9, all divided by 2, plus 25 over 3. So when you divide by 2, it's the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So we're going to get this. Okay? If you want, we can simplify a little bit. Let's see, we could divide the numerator and denominator by 3. I'm talking about this one here. And now we can get a new common denominator of 6. So we get 25 over 6. So that's the solution for the first integral. Okay, let's go to the second integral. That one went from 5/3 to 3. And that one is for all positives, so 3t minus 5. Okay, so first we're going to put in the 3. And then we have to subtract what happens when we put in the 5/3. Do not use the answer from the previous screen because that was a different antiderivative. Okay, let's simplify a little bit. It's kind of messy. Okay, I'm just going to keep simplifying now. So finding a common denominator. So don't forget, when we divide by 2, it's the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. Okay, so for this first part, we're just going to get -3/2. And now for the second part, let's reduce the first fraction, divide everything by 3. If you don't like fractions, you're going to have a problem with this. Alright, so we have -3/2 minus, we'll use a common denominator of 6. Okay, and a negative becomes a positive. Let's find a common denominator of 6. And we can reduce that to 8/3. So 8/3 was the answer for that. Okay, so now let's go to the next screen. So this will be our final answer. Remember, we have to add the two integrals. So the first integral gave us 25/6. And to that, we need to add 8/3. So we'll find a common denominator of 6. And we get 41/6. And if we did some long division, well, it's not even long division, but we did it like this. Let's see what we'd get. 36, that leaves us with 5, 8, 2, so 2, and we'll keep going. And from the calculator, we had gotten 6.827, so you can see that it does work. And so this would be our final answer. That would be the well, you could use the fraction. That would be your final distance, okay? And so that's how you integrate an absolute value function.